We might have to just kick her out of the studio. She exited on her own. Well, this is Steve Kershke. Welcome to QLI's webinar series. I have Don Terry. He's up in his office remote. We do have Laura Brown here. She'll be joining us at some point once she gets her tech figured out. And then I also have a couple new guests. So Olivia, welcome. This is your first webinar or no?
It is my first webinar.
We have another first timer, and then we have Anna. Welcome back.
Thank you.
I know you're a vet at this point.
Oh, am I a vet?
I don't know.
Wow.
Seems like it. We are going to be talking about prototype smart apartments. And so before I kick it over to Olivia and Anna, first of all, Olivia's an occupational therapist by trade. She oversees all of our adaptive technology, partners with our clinical teams to make sure all of our residents are taken care of in that regard. And then Anna oversees our motor learning program promotion too, title change, right? So she's our coordinator of our motor learning program, and it's a really new, cool outpatient program that we have that really utilizes our smart apartment. So I'm excited for you all to join us and talk about this today. Before we get too far, we do have a little bit of housekeeping. As a reminder, I don't have our slides in here today, but as a reminder, to get your CEUs, you have to stay the whole time. We will show you a poll question at the end of this. Please fill that out. There will only be one poll question. We will call it out. So if you're on the phone or you're joining us in a different way, don't sweat it. Let us know if you don't get it for whatever reason, but there is only one poll question and we will call it out when that happens. And then as a reminder, at the very end, once you sign off, you will get prompted to fill out a survey. That survey is how you get your CEUs. So if your browser allows, it should pop straight up in your browser, fill it out, and you will automatically receive that. We do know some of you have had some issues with that in the past. Please let us know. We'll get that sent over to you after the fact. So with that, I'll turn it over to Olivia and Anna. Also, Olivia, I'm just going to hand you my computer since we had some computer challenges today too. So with that, take it away, ladies.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys for joining. You are going to be listening to a presentation regarding our smart apartments. So title of this is Alexa, I'm Home. Prototype apartments reveal what's possible in rehab, recovery, and life. We always like to start with our mission statement. QLI is a very mission-based company, and everything we do is revolving around our mission. So deliver life-changing rehabilitation, protect dignity, install purpose, and create hope, commit to excellence. So this really is central to everything we do here, and the smart apartments is no different. So we started our smart apartment program. We're coming up on 2 years, which is pretty exciting. So situated on our QLI campus, it's a new building over by our lake. And really the whole goal of this was to redefine what independent living looks like. We obviously have different support throughout our campus, and this is something that individuals are allowed to come and live in completely independently, but with the help of automation and smart appliances to aid in their independence.
Just real quick before you do the objectives, what was the lead time up that I know you and I were on this project? It was about year and a half that we worked on getting those prepped and ready.
Probably. I mean, even more before that. I mean, just like general concept of just what this could be. I mean, it took some tweaking, as you know, we kind of went through different scenarios of how we wanted to build them and what we wanted to include. And so like, even just at that level, probably even longer than a year and a half. Yeah.
And then for some context, we had a full team. It was anywhere from our leadership within the organization, clinicians, PT, OT. We even had some SLPs. So we had a really wide, IT was a big piece of this. We had a large team that was a big part of that. So
yeah, we were also able to bring in individuals that have sustained injuries. So they were able to give us some really good feedback as well, which was imperative to the project. Yeah. You can read all of the objectives on the page. And then I'll pass it over to Olivia.
Yeah, so hello, I'm Olivia. Some of the concepts that we were looking at for accessible design were functionality, so making sure that the space was in fact functional for a large group of people with varying levels of different motor, cognitive, and physical abilities. Also looking at space, we know that there might be an equipment need, different mobility devices needed, as well as looking at safety because we really are pushing the boundaries of who can be independent, and then also leaving room for change, knowing that this is our first time building smart apartments and it truly is a prototype. So knowing that we probably will make adjustments, switch out some appliances, some things are going to work really well, some things might not work as well. So getting that feedback and leaving room to make those changes.
Yeah, I can't believe that we were thinking about building 30 of these.
I'm glad we didn't.
We had such grand visions for a smart community right out of the gate. And as we'll talk about, we've learned so much along the way, but I can't imagine the fact that we had built all 30 of those. So I'm glad we started with 2.
Me
Yeah.
too. I think 2 is the perfect number just to get feedback from individuals living there. And then also for us to figure out what type of support's needed, how many people like we would truly need to help run these buildings and what that might look like on a larger scale.
Yeah, and I'm not even the one doing it day to day.
It's great when everything's working.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna jump into a virtual tour, just so you can kind of get a visual of what this looks like. Right, so you are looking at the living room currently. Olivia's going to go into some of the specific technology pieces, but I want you just to visualize the space. We'll point out a couple of the accessibility features in each room. But I think feedback over and over again that we have heard beyond even just the technology we've included is just how beautiful the space is and how open it is. And you think about an individual in a wheelchair who's trying to navigate. Most of their world is not built for them. They don't have the space to be able to maneuver their chair effectively. So one of the biggest impacts is just having a big enough space that they can do everything that they need and get around, wide enough doors, enough turning space in the bathroom, things like that. When you're looking at this living room, you can notice that there is a workspace on the left side. That's a roll under desk that can raise and lower automatically. We have a smart TV that can be controlled via voice, via app, via remote. So lots of different modes for being able to operate everything. And then there's a couch that allows to be pulled out for family members and caregivers if need be, if they're having someone visit in the space. Anything to add to this, Olivia?
Yeah, so I think just throughout the apartment too, you'll notice we have huge windows. So we have automated shades. So those are, like Anna was saying, multimodal. So the whole idea was that with varying levels of independence and physical ability, just making sure that there were different ways to access it. So shades and lights are all voice app or manually activated. I think a big thing too that we found really helpful is setting up routines in this environment. So we've been able to do that. We work with a Control4 system. So that's helps with all the automation. So everything has one system to go through.
Can you go a little bit more into the routines, what that means?
Yeah, so we're able to really customize this experience for each individual. So if you think about waking up in the morning when you're in bed, you can say, Alexa, good morning. And she might start your favorite radio station, kick up the thermostat a few degrees. The lights start gradually coming on. Some of the shades open depending on which ones you want. Our shower can turn on, start heating the water up, but really just customizing the space for them. So they're not having to transfer out of bed to go to a light switch to turn it on, to get back to bed, to get dressed. So just trying to make it as efficient as possible for these individuals and making sure that the space truly feels like their home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just for some context too, I know, and you all know this too with me, but our audience is primarily workers' comp related, right? And so I think the other thing that we thought about going into this is because we serve that population, a lot of times we get requests on what's appropriate or what's not appropriate. So, you're going to see an apartment that has as much technology as we can think of, but that doesn't necessarily mean that our team's prescribing that, right? So thinking on our audience's end, you know, we are trying to take that into account. It also is a kind of a playground of sorts for us to test, and I know you guys will talk a little bit more about that. So I think it'd be good for us on our end to make sure we keep thinking about that part of it and fill in the blanks there for our audience. You know, I know you have lots of personal anecdotes and things like that. So I think that has kind of been the vision for this. And so when we talk about multimodal and we talk about high and low tech, much of this can be applied to all of our residents that we have, especially on the work comp side. So I guess keep that perspective in mind as you guys are going through.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that. And I think part of the reason that we have such a depth of technology in this space is because we know we're bringing in a lot of different individuals with different injuries. So we've had a multitude of different people in this space living in it, from a spinal cord injury, living in a manual wheelchair, to a incomplete spinal cord injury who is able to ambulate, someone with Guillain-Barré, stroke with aphasia, brain injury, limb loss. So because of that and the varying different levels of abilities, we really had to kind of think of everything to allow for really anyone to be able to come into this space. So yes, a lot of this technology may not be applicable for certain diagnosis types, but we wanted to be able to open up the space to as many individuals as possible. So that was a big key of this as well.
Yeah.
Livy, do you want to kind of get into kind of point out some things that they're seeing in the kitchen right now from an accessibility standpoint, as well as technology?
Absolutely. So upon entry of the kitchen, again, like Anna was saying, it looks beautiful. It's a nice open space. There's tons of counter room. Something that's kind of a hidden feature is if you look at all the cabinetry, it's all soft touch and soft close, which is really nice. You don't have to have as much dexterity to get those open and closed. Our refrigerator, we have an LG refrigerator right now. You can voice automate some of it. It also has a swipe for your foot, so it'll help prop the door open. That's something too that we've had some really good feedback on, and then we've had some people say too that it would be more helpful to have like a handle on the refrigerator. So again, just a perfect place to test out this tech. Our stovetop, it's an induction stovetop, so helps reduce the risk of burns. You'll see a mirror over it. Our partners at AOI helped design that to, again, make it sleek and beautiful. But then it just really helps the individual, though, see what's going on in the pot. If they are in a manual or a power chair and might not be able just to naturally see over. The pot filler has been super helpful, too. It just limits the amount of transfer that you have to do from the sink to the stove. And it fits perfectly over the Keurig.
That wasn't a design choice, it just happened that way. So we got fortunate there.
We did. The kitchen sink too, we wanted to leave plenty of room to go under with a mobility device such as a wheelchair, but then you'll notice that it sticks out a little bit, so it's nice and deep. It's soft touch for turn on, turn off, but you can also voice automate it, which has been really cool, not only from a physical standpoint, but also a cognitive standpoint. So I can request for it to fill up, dispense 1 cup of water, and it'll dispense the exact amount, which has been really cool. And again, not everyone has used that feature, but some people have found it very helpful. Our dishwasher is a drawer, so you don't have the door falling low, so there's a little bit less lean and less trunk control required. So it sits a little bit higher up. We've gotten really good feedback on that. And then if we move to the left a little bit more, we have 2 different microwaves that we've been testing out in both apartments. So this one opens more like a traditional oven door. And then our other one in the west apartment is voice automated. So you can ask for it to open the door. It comes out as a drawer. So a little bit easier to get to. And then my favorite is our oven.
Back up a little bit.
Who's driving this ship?
So the oven, I think, has been one of just the highlights of the kitchen. It has French doors to open, so you can get much closer to it from a wheelchair standpoint. Lessens the burn risk because you don't have that door falling and you're not reaching into the oven. You're able to pull up right to it, which has been really nice. but it's also nearly completely voice automated. So I can have it preheat to 350 degrees. I can ask for like to cook a roast, turn it into an air fryer. So that one's been really nice. You can also turn it off remotely, check the status of it. So that's been really great.
I know we spent a lot of time even with like where these are positioned along the countertop.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little about what we've learned? Did we overthink it? I know you've talked about the access of the French doors, but you know, for our individuals who are maybe confined to a wheelchair to be able to take a dish and not have to move it 10 feet across the kitchen, like what have we learned in that regard?
Yeah, I think fortunately we have made good design choices, which I am happy we did. So imagining even just from the stove to the sink, we really wanted to make sure that there was a countertop between those two spaces so that someone could slide across into the sink versus having to carry it on their lap per se. Maybe it's heavy or it's hot from a burn risk standpoint. Even the position of the dishwasher just to the side of the sink, again, easy loading. So not only is this something that we want to be functional, we want it to be efficient. Everything that an individual with a disability is doing in a day takes effort. It's very effortful to do everything in their day, from getting up out of bed to showering to toileting to cooking in the kitchen. So that can be exhausting. And so even having a smart space that helps reduce some of that fatigue, um, is really important from just a improvement of life, but also from a safety standpoint. If someone is really fatigued, and you're in the kitchen, that can lead to injury as well.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything to add to that?
Yeah. I think Anna, you did such a nice job with help designing the table in the middle.
Mm.
So it raises and lowers, and it actually comes up
Ooh, nope. Sorry, guys.
to about chest level. So it almost becomes like a kitchen island.
Yep. So this again worked with our AOI partners. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to get it. There we go. Okay. So we worked with our AOI partners to create this table. So again, raises and lowers, really important feature. There's not a lot out on the market, so we had to go and custom make this. Obviously, down the line, hopefully there is more features or options for kitchen tables that can raise and lower, because that is very helpful for certain individuals. But also again, making the space beautiful. So it fits in the space, it looks beautiful. That was an important piece of this as well, because a lot of homes that are accessible just aren't very pretty. And I think we can all agree that we like to live in pretty spaces. I think that is just good for kind of overall well-being.
Well, and just back to the vision, I remember some of our earlier conversations are one of the people that we envisioned living in this actually was from Miami,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
we, you know, Omaha, depending on who you are and if you've ever been here, Omaha is actually a really pretty cool place,
Mhm.
but it certainly doesn't have the view of Miami, right? And then also back to the comment around envisioning a smart community. Uh, when not only the design but like the aesthetic, the setup, and then when we think of a community, you know, we have lots of people who leave QLI that one of the reasons they fail is because they don't have community, right? And so that back to that first slide where we were saying that we were trying to redefine what it looked like to live and you know move throughout your life in this sort of fashion. That was a big piece of that, right? And so the aesthetics, the setup, and even some of the other amenities that I know you're going to talk about. I think it's been really cool to see that.
Yeah, for sure.
We have a question from the audience. I know there's a lot of variable heights for the workstations and the desk, but what about what's the height from the counter that's in the kitchen?
Oh gosh. I can't tell you off the top of my head. I know it was kind of finding that middle ground between like a wheelchair height and like a standing height. So something that could work with both individuals.
So
Um
not standard.
no, not standard. No.
Okay.
It's lower than what standard is. But we can definitely get that height and send that to that person.
But
If
it still goes back to like we were trying to design for someone who's standing, someone's in a power chair, and someone who's in a manual wheelchair, right? All basically three different heights. And so I think that has been, you know, when you think of ADA, there's definitely recommendations. I think we we took that into account, but also we looked at just anecdotally, what do we see and how does it be flexible across the board?
Yeah, exactly.
Especially since these are prototype, right? We built these for like a larger group of people rather than custom for someone who's, building their own home.
Yeah, I think one concept we've come to realize is there really is no universal design when it comes to accessibility in the home. We're trying to get as close as possible to that, but there are going to be just differences that just aren't going to work for certain people just because we are trying to cater to the masses. I also want to just mention the robot really quickly. So we do have one robot in each apartment. Um, Robotic technology is still continuing to improve. Eventually, we want to have a robot that can reach into a fridge and make someone a sandwich. We're not there yet. What we do have access to is communication robots. So this one right here, we call her Blue. So a clinician or someone, even a family member, could drive this remotely around the apartment. And then that tablet on there would show their face and is able for someone to communicate. So me as a clinician, I could get in that space and do a session virtually, but have it be a lot more interactive and move around the space with that individual versus them having to carry on a tablet. But think about a family member. We have a lot of individuals that are coming from different states. And we still want that connection piece. I think we learned that from COVID, just how important that connection piece is with loved ones. And so there's an individual in here, say mom wants to kind of teach them how to make the family lasagna. She can get on this, she can drive around the space and they can cook it together. So that was a really key piece too, was the connection as well. Right. We're gonna try to drive into the bathroom.
Perfect.
Well done.
Thank you. Okay, Olivia.
Another question's come up. Various languages, can those be addressed on the communication platforms?
You want to take that?
Yeah, so with the robot that Anna was talking about, it's very similar just to a video call, so you can use your native language. We can change language for, right now we're using Alexa for all of our commands. So we are able to go in and change that language, which we haven't approached that yet. It hasn't come up. Everyone so far has been English native. So it's something that definitely we could make that customizable person to person. We just haven't gotten that opportunity yet.
I think one thing that has come up though is we have had individuals in here with aphasia. And so getting creative around that piece, there is a lot of voice activation, but we wanted to make sure that someone can activate with their phone or with a remote as well so that they didn't have to use voice activation. But just a fun kind of anecdotal thing that we've been trying to utilize in the space is someone working on their aphasia. So using commands to work on voicing, work on that piece as well within their therapy,
Yeah.
which has been kind of a fun endeavor.
Our last individual with aphasia, he was so excited to use it as part of his program, and we went through and typed out every single command, blew it up pretty large, laminated it, and then his speech therapist, we would stick a new command every couple days, and then he would practice that. That way we're getting that perfect repetition every time. So from a visual standpoint, it was great. And then he was functionally using those phrases. So that was really cool to see because I didn't know that that would be a component of his program. I figured that he'd mostly use the app or manually operate everything. So that was really cool to see.
Yep. Olivia, do you want to go into some of the accessibility and tech features within the bathroom?
So you'll notice in the bathroom, again, just space is a huge component. A lot of our individuals are transferring to a shower chair. So we wanted to make sure that there was plenty of space to safely do that and functionally and efficiently maneuver the area. It's a total wet room, so everything can get wet. You don't have to worry about a huge mess at the end. Our countertop is actually really unique and cool. I think we are the only one right now in the state.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
We had to get a special permit from the city, but we have telescoping pipes, so the bathroom counter can actually be moved up and down to adjust height. Again, that's something that probably within an individual's home they wouldn't necessarily need, but because we're trying to reach such a wide variety of ability levels, we really wanted that to be customizable. And then also just from a safety standpoint too. So that's been really interesting. Something that we need to continue to work on is it's a little bit hard with the way that the pipes are laid out. We need to find a way to push them back more in telescope and then maybe bring the sink out more similarly to the kitchen sink. But it's been really cool though, just to watch that take place and be one of the leaders in that area. The toilet is one of the key features here. So it is automated. You'll see a remote on the wall next to it. When you go approach the toilet, the lid lifts up. But the big selling point though, it's self-cleaning, but it also has bidet features. So just thinking about an independence standpoint, a dignity standpoint, that could really lessen the need of a caregiver and promote that level of independence where maybe someone before would need help completing pericare, following a bowel program. But we're hoping though that this increases level of independence. We've also been working with other partners too. It's not a perfect design. So just seeing how can we continue to make this more available for individuals, especially those that are using like shower chairs, and how can we make a more perfect design?
Yeah, I mean, this is a perfect example of it has a lot of key features, but maybe the shape or the size doesn't fit some of our needs in terms of like fitting under a RAS chair or something like
Mhm.
that, right? So I think it's been interesting to hear you all's work with, I think, is it Bemis?
Yep.
The partner of saying, hey, this is what's really great, but we also need this, and how do you figure out how to navigate that? So that's been cool to
Mhm.
listen to that.
Because we've seen a lot of bidets right now, they are pressure. So you have to sit on the seat for the actual bidet to activate. But if you're using a shower chair, you're not going to get that pressure on the seat. So then talking to companies, like we just had a meeting with Bemis last week. How are we making it so that we can forego the pressure need and then also make it a cleaner experience too? That way you're not getting any overflow when it is cleaning and you're above the toilet seat. So what does that look like? So it's been a really fun area to show what we've been trying, what can be improved, and then how are we continuing to work with these partnerships. So to the right, we have our shower. So this is also voice app or manually automated. We can change temperature of it. I think this is a really cool area. We've talked about the incorporation of AI, I mean, really in all aspects of life, whether it's work, home, school, but something that I discovered was that 115 degrees is actually quite hot for a shower. So you'll see in a video later, I request a very warm shower. So it'd be really cool if eventually AI could come in and say, hey, are you sure that you want that? The recommended temperature would be, and then give recommendations. But it has been really cool too from a routine standpoint. So if we wanted the shower to turn on at a certain point, we could. And then just again, it limits the need for dexterity or upper extremity strength just to turn that on and off. So that's been a really cool area. You'll see too, we just have grab bars throughout, more than you would see in the typical bathroom, just again, so that we can make it work for a variety of individuals. So those are a little bit more standard features. And then we also have the self-dispensing containers for shampoo, conditioner, body wash. That way we're not messing with caps trying to squeeze. So really just trying to make the space as usable as possible.
Yeah, we probably spent way too long talking about the dispensers and
It's the little
but
things.
it's a really big thing, right? When you have someone who has lacks dexterity and thinking of cleanliness, back to the aesthetics, I think that's what I've loved about this project is the attention to detail.
Yeah. And then just appreciating there are no transitions here. So that is such a big key. So when we're talking about utilizing shower chairs, RAS chairs, there's no lips, there's no transition. Someone could easily roll into this space. There's enough space for them to turn not only their shower chair, but also have a caregiver as well. I think I can just think of so many situations in people's homes where I'm trying to help someone showering and just the space is not created. And it just makes for a very wet, but also just a very difficult situation to try to do. So really big piece is just the overall space as well. Okay. And try to drive this into the bedroom. All right.
So in the bedroom, you'll see we don't have a ton of furniture. So we kind of have like hidden dressers. So the paneling on the left and the right side, the wood paneling, those are actually all drawers. So again, soft touch, soft close. But we have so much space in this room, we didn't want to take it up with a lot of furniture. Again, just for ease of access. And then one of my favorite things in the entire apartment are our closet rods. So we have 3 in the bedroom and then 1 in the front entry as well. So we have their app and remote activated, but also voice. So I can ask Alexa to lower the closet rod and the closet rod will actually come down to me, which is just huge from, again, it keeps things tucked away. So from a space perspective, but also just from an access, we're not having to use dressing sticks or reachers to try to get a heavy coat from a hanger and then hoping it doesn't fall or getting the right one. It's coming down to the level of the individual and we can adjust the height too. You can stop it where you'd like it. So if you don't need it to go all the way down to a manual wheelchair level, you can bring it halfway down. So it's just been a really cool feature.
We've also included a Flexibed in both apartments. So if you're not familiar with the Flexibed, you can get it in any size, any from a twin to a king. We have queen size in both apartments, but the nice thing about this is you can pick mattress type and it has all the features of a hospital bed. So it has the head of bed raising and lowering, the foot of bed raising and lowering, but also the entire bed raises and lowers, which you don't find on really any other standard mattresses outside of a hospital bed. They have railings we can attach to them. So again, really like we wanted it to have all the features of a hospital bed if someone needed that, especially from a transfer standpoint, being able to raise a bed to be able to make an easy enough transition over to like a shower chair, but then lower it down to get into a manual chair. Those are 2 different heights. So that has been a really imperative feature. And I would say the Flexibed is something that we're showing a lot of individuals over our campus because they are looking for something like this. They need these features, but they also want to be able to sleep with maybe their loved one and have the space maybe to even do some stretching or do dressing. And the hospital bed just doesn't have enough space. So really, really like the Flexibed and would recommend it to a lot of different patients.
You all weren't at our sexuality presentation, but we definitely did not talk about hospital beds paired with sexuality.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's an
I mean,
element though, right?
It is. I
Yeah.
mean, like no one really wants to sleep in a hospital bed, especially with your wife, right? Or husband or whoever it is, right? So, I mean, I think this has really been a cool option because it looks more normal and still gives us the features.
Yeah.
It does. And I think too, just returning to roles that you had before injury. So being a husband, being a wife, just having the option though to have that so it doesn't feel like everything in your life has changed. You can still sleep with your spouse, like Anna was saying. There's room. It doesn't feel like it's a clinical setting. It feels like a home.
Totally.
Yeah. Just also want to kind of talk again about the space. So we allowed for enough space on both sides of the bed to allow for maybe someone, if they are using a shower chair and a wheelchair, to park that on both sides. Again, thinking from an independent standpoint, if someone's independent in the space, you can't really park the shower chair in the corner of the room. You got to have it next to the bed, but then where's your chair going to fit? And so having that space to allow both is really important from an independent standpoint from that perspective. We also have a couple different TVs in this space. The one on the side really meant more from like a clinical perspective. So a therapist could come in and do a session virtually and have someone kind of teaching them different techniques to get in and out of bed, stretching routines, things like that. But also a nurse could zoom in and do a skin check. We found though that we weren't utilizing this to what we thought we were. So again, adding to the needing to adapt the space as needed. We've removed the Zoom bar, feeling like we could use the robot much more effectively in that manner than needing a TV mounted to the side. We also, like Olivia said, we have another clothing rod and then washer and dryer. Do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, so there are not a ton of automated washer dryer or smart options on the market right now, but it is self-dispensing for soap. You can go on the app, you can check the status, you could start the load. And then we also switched out so the doors so they open opposite of each other, similar like to the French oven. That way you're not putting wet clothes on your lap and then moving and transporting them around the doors into the dryer. It's a more seamless transition. Because unfortunately right now we do not have washer dryers that can transfer their own load. And then it'd be really nice if it folded your laundry.
Yeah, I could use that too.
But again, just trying to make it as efficient and effective as possible. So just something as simple as switching out the hinges for the doors has been super helpful.
Yeah, and then just another piece of smart design, having a folding table that again can raise and lower automatically next to it. That is also roll under from an accessibility standpoint, was a big focus as well.
And I think too, a big area, oh, sorry, you turned the other way,
Oh,
but
we're good. Where you look?
the foresight,
Oh, yeah. Is it?
I think it
I
would
think
be
it's behind you,
top left.
I think it's in top right,
or
right?
there's one out
Oh,
in
there is
the-
one there.
in the
Yeah.
living room too.
Let me look at that
So
one.
we have, it's a foresight fall management system. We have one in each room. Because we are pushing the level of independence and seeing like who really can be independent, that does come with inherent safety risks. So we want to make sure that if somebody were to fall, the proper people are notified. We can check in on them. It sends an alert, which is really nice. And then we also get a video, but the video is still HIPAA compliant. Because nobody's a fan of having a camera with them while they're sharing or taking a shower, changing their clothing. So it's thermal based. So you're not actually seeing who that individual is, but you can see if somebody had a fall. But I would say that the coolest part of this is it's actually it learns your gait patterns, so it can predict falls before they happen, which is really neat because of course we want to predict those things and stop them before they actually happen. And then we can find maybe every evening around a certain time they almost have a fall, so we can go back, especially Anna, like with her individuals and motor learning program, and see why is that? Are you really fatigued at this time? Do you have a lot of clothes on your floor and you're trying to navigate around them?
Yeah, I think also this the system also has a bed monitor that we've been utilizing. So being able to monitor sleep is such a key piece for recovery, for just everything that we do in the day, for safety. So integrating that within the system has been a nice feature as well.
Yeah, I feel like we've had a ton of discussions on the sleep stuff, right?
Mhm.
There's a lot of ways to monitor sleep, but it feels like we always run into like, yeah, but, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, but you have to wear the Apple Watch on your wrist. Yeah, but, like you have to set it up and it requires a manual, way to track it or something like that, right? So I think that is definitely something that we hope comes along and becomes a little bit more automated and then also accurate, right?
Yeah.
Because there's the difference there too.
Absolutely. So there's a couple other features we want to see show just via video, how this is operating. So we'll go to that next.
Can you mention the name of the fall prevention system?
Yep. It's a Foresight Stanley product. So Foresight Health is the one that we are utilizing.
Don, can you just confirm that you can see the smart feature highlights slide?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure you're not seeing the other slide.
All right. So you're going to see some lovely videos of Miss Olivia operating this technology, which she loves. So she mentioned the clothing rods. So we're going to play that one, just showing how it operates.
Alexa, entry closet rod on.
So you can hear Olivia gave the command, Alexa, entry closet rod on. It activated it and brought it down. And then she's showing how to use the remote as well. That can bring it back up. Right. And talk about the.
Hi, LG. Switch to crushed ice. Hi, LG. Open door.
So really, this was about the only product currently on the market that allowed for voice activation. But like Olivia mentioned, for certain individuals, this hasn't been as accessible. So we continue to revisit and look at what other options are out there. If we do find a better option, we want to switch that out.
I'd say too, it's one of the only appliances that we cannot integrate through Alexa also. So it is an extra command pattern that you have to learn. So using LG instead of saying Alexa, everything else we were able to integrate. And I think too, just learning how that integration works, like it's actually such a process because you say it to Alexa, she has to send it through the cloud to get to Control 4, and then Control 4 has to trigger the appliance, and then it goes back to Alexa. So just how are we problem solving? And then back to if we build a huge community of these, how are we keeping those all up to date? How are we troubleshooting?
You mentioned Control 4 a couple times, so hopefully this isn't like a stumpy question and we need Scott. But can you just at a quick high level describe what is Control 4, why do we need it, and what's good about it, and maybe some of the challenges?
So Control 4 is kind of like an umbrella company almost. So it's one application, and then everything that we have, we're able to integrate it in. So then instead of having to go to a separate app for the closet rod, a separate app for the doors, we're able to do it all on the Control 4 app. So that's been really nice. And then it does help just with, like I said, LG, we're not able to do the command through Alexa. However, everything else we can. So then we have the same command structure for every other device and feature in the apartment. So it just makes it a little bit more easy to use, and then easier to learn too.
Yep. But ultimately, the idea is that you have all these different products, right? Google, Amazon, LG, whatever it might be, that don't always talk to each other. And it's our way of kind of integrating everything.
Exactly.
But also, wouldn't you say it's a pretty big challenge moving forward? Because, you know, that's where everything is being pushed and people want things to communicate, but then there's also the kind of consumerism component, right?
We run into just like voice activation for TVs or things like that. So we use like the Amazon Fire Cube, but Fire Cube does not like Google TVs because Google has their own Google Home. So sometimes we run into those issues. So Control 4 does help a lot with that, but there are some roadblocks though that we just haven't been able to get over yet.
Yeah.
And I think too, just with individuals, if they're going to implement this at home, it's expensive.
Yeah.
And we know that most people are not going to go home and probably incorporate everything that's in this apartment, or they might not be able to incorporate Control 4. But if they have one key piece that like really helped with their independence or just a couple areas, we're hoping that this helps shed some light on that.
Perfect. Let me show you the barn doors. So again, automated barn doors throughout the apartment. But then you also see that we have push buttons next to it. Even just if you lightly pull or push from the door, it will operate, as Olivia is showing. I think one piece is just voice activation is still kind of in its infancy as well. So can you talk a little bit about that and like what we're gonna hopefully see with voice activation moving forward, with a learning perspective? Really, you need really specific commands right now.
So when individuals are coming here, we have a whole onboarding process because there are so many commands to learn and you have to say them in a certain structure. There's a few different ways to say each thing, but it all follows the same format. So if you're looking at someone that does have aphasia, that might look a little bit different. Enunciation might be challenging or getting that perfect sentence structure. So there are some adaptive listening options, but they're just not where we need them to be yet. So it'd be really cool. We're hoping that not too far down the road, we'll have options where it is learning your voice patterns, or like your pronunciation of certain words, and then it's still reading those. Because right now, if it does not understand the command, it just does not go through, or it tries to give you the next best thing, which might be the complete opposite of what you're looking for. So hoping for more improvements.
Yeah, I remember one gentleman who had aphasia. On and off was really hard for him to get right. He was saying off when you wanted on, and that really operated two different things for that certain piece of equipment. So that like in itself, we have to say on and off versus like down and up. So if he was able to say down, that may have been a lot more effective, but we just didn't have the option.
Yeah. There right now they can't really customize the phrases, but it would be really amazing though if we could.
Yeah. Quickly show some other, the smart shower.
Alexa, turn off shower.
So really cool feature again is someone could be in bed, give this command, let it warm up so that by the time that they're out of bed and ready to shower, that it's already to the temperature that they want. Another thing with the shades. So you can give a command for a specific blind to raise or lower, or you can control them all at one time. And so again, with routines, a good morning routine, someone can say good morning. It's going to slowly bring up the lights. It's going to bring up the shades. It's going to bring the temperature up to what they want. So having that customizability. And showing some of the features of our smart toilet, automatic toilet, like seat raises and lowers, automatic flush, self-cleaning, bidet. It does water massage. So if you really want that,
There's a
you
heated
got
seat.
it. It's heated seat. There's a lot of nice little features in
In case
it.
you want to spend more than just a couple minutes on there.
Yeah.
Could you guys address access for patients to this particular building and maybe some overall construction costs?
Yeah, so access to like our current inpatient population, we just had somebody about a week ago, they're looking at putting closet rods in their home. So since the apartment's vacant right now, we're able to take some individuals in when it makes sense, show them some of these features. But if the apartments are both occupied, we treat it like they were renting the area because they're the tenants. So then we have this virtual tour we could show them. We have videos, and then we have links too for everything that we have included in the apartment. So
Yeah.
just
Yeah, and then maybe just, I think that's one form of access. And if the question's around how does the person get into and out of, there is dedicated parking. So many of these individuals we suspect would be driving, so they have their own parking, so access in and out. The other thing is we won't be able to show you that, but there's a lot of thought in terms of covered access. So making sure that the doors, into and out of are covered. There's ring doorbells on the outside of each entrance. They are all keypad access as well. So each individual has their own keypad code. And so getting into and out of, treat it as such like a community apartment, so to speak. They can have visitors. In terms of admission into this, typically these individuals are coming through our inpatient program and transitioning to this before they go home, although we have had some people come from the community. Again, if we have a little bit of time, Anna can probably talk more about that. But there's essentially room and board pricing, and then any access to therapy is a separate cost. So kind of two different ways to answer that access.
Yeah, and I just want to bring up at this point a concept that you had brought up, Steve, just regarding just like being able to be good stewards of being able to make recommendations for certain individuals. Getting someone into the space, it's kind of twofold. One, I see it as a therapy, and they're having to be independent. They're utilizing some of this technology to make it easier. But at some point, they may not need all of that. They may only be using certain pieces. And maybe that changes throughout the time. Maybe they're utilizing a lot of technology initially, but by the time that they're ready to discharge, they're only using a couple of pieces. And we can be able to say to a pair source or to the individual, like these two things would be really helpful to have in your space. You're not going to need all of this, but like you're really utilizing this. This is allowing you to be more independent. So again, being good stewards of what truly someone is utilizing, and they didn't use it just one or two times. I mean, they've been utilizing it for months to be able to speak to that.
When you're doing voice activated commands, are those speakers or microphones permanent, or are they able to place them around the apartment?
So we have Alexas throughout the apartment. So we have a pretty good broad just microphone access. So in each room, there is an Alexa to allow for someone to voice. And so it picks it up actually pretty well. Sometimes I give a command in a kitchen and the bedroom picks it up somehow. But I feel like we've been able to solve that problem by just putting in more Alexas. Anything to add, Olivia, from a barrier to appliances or just in general barriers?
I think just in general, we found, especially like going to conferences and talking to companies, that accessibility is an afterthought. So most of the things that we have included in the apartments weren't necessarily made with accessibility in mind. It's a convenience feature. So then how are we taking that and then making it accessible? So that's a little bit difficult. And then, like we were saying earlier, cost and then just finding a truly universal design is really difficult and maybe not entirely possible. So just making it work for as many people as we can.
Couple of things just for kind of future looking, like Steve mentioned, initially we were thinking about 30 units, say of smart apartments. Glad we didn't do that initially because I think just from a learning perspective, it's been helpful just to have two. Also just from a general management, we found after each person moves out, we're having to bring someone from the IT department back in to kind of make corrections, fix different pieces. So getting into a good streamlined process of that would have just been pretty unmanageable with 30. But there is hope that we are looking at smart communities, not only through QLI, but we want to see these pop up all across the US. We would love to see one in Denver and Atlanta, and really be able to show other companies and people what is possible. Has been a fun piece of just bringing these individuals in to show them what we've created, partnering with other individuals that are thinking about the same thing and trying to create similar spaces, and allow it to be a really collaborative thing.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is the physical component, right? I think that's one thing that we didn't talk a ton about, and it's probably the biggest barrier in terms of if you have someone who can't get in and out of bed or they can't just physically access their environment. You mentioned robots. I mean, I think our vision is that they could have a robot assistant who could do a lot of those things, whether it be something simple as reaching into the fridge, or maybe someday they could actually be the person that transfers them and is the PCA, right? And like that is a huge barrier for lots of our people that we don't have solved yet, but hopefully someday that we do. Okay, we do have some time for questions. Before we do that, I'm going to launch the poll question. Yep, you can go ahead and do that. So here's the poll question. Make sure you answer this. So just make sure you answer that. Don, any other questions that have popped up that we haven't?
No, I think most of them have been answered or I asked them.
Terrific.
Oh, can you address someone with some physical motor skill issues, maybe a larger iPad icon or one of that being an obstacle?
Sorry, can you rephrase that question? What do you mean by that?
Uh, Smartphones are pretty small. Are there other larger platforms that people can use that might have fine motor skill issues or tremor, that kind of thing?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So we do have an iPad in the space. So if we do connect someone's personal phone if they have one and want to utilize that to our Control4 system so they can operate a lot of the commands with their phone. But we also have it connected to a larger iPad, so that they can utilize that instead. A lot of the pieces, the buttons and things like that are larger scale. So we have large buttons next to the doors to operate the doors. The shower has large buttons to be able to operate that. Even I went as far to look at the toaster that we have in the apartment, that it has very easy accessible buttons to be able to push.
Well, and all these are things that, depending on the person going in, we're just individualizing as needed, right? So there's this kind of like baseline, what's available. And then for someone who's low vision or low access, we tweak as much as we can very individually. And then when the next person comes in, we might have to undo it all, right? Which is the hard part. The other thing, just while we're talking about this, if you may not have noticed, but there's a lot of panel type walls in there. So I forget which one of you said it, because this is prototype, again, just to reiterate, we are learning every single day, right? And a lot of what's in there is being used well, and some of it is we've already decided we don't need it. At the very end of the day, we could actually pull out all of those interior walls because of how they're built, and gut the whole thing if we needed to and restart adjust walls and configure the whole thing if we wanted because of the construction that we used. So, a big takeaway from this is kind of like an R&D playground for our team, which is really cool, right? And so we expect to not have it all figured out. We expect to make a lot of mistakes along the way, but hopefully we're also pushing the limits for what's possible for our teams and the people that we work with. So it's been a really cool project. Okay, so looks like I'm going to shut down the poll question. So if you didn't have a chance to answer that, let us know. And with that, ladies, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Real quick, there's a couple questions that just come up regarding cost. I know this is a pretty specialized building, but is there a way to address the construction cost?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a pricey endeavor. Again, we're kind of on the forefront of utilizing a lot of this technology in one space. And then you also have to factor in, we built it during COVID. So that in itself kind of raised definitely construction costs. And so I think the 2 apartments in total was about, $2 million? So about $1 million per apartment. There was no building there, so we had to build the building itself, and then also including all the features and technology that we included in it, all the millwork, everything, came out to be about $1 million an apartment.
The other thing I'll just add is, if you didn't know this, QLI is a nonprofit organization. So this is a project that we fundraised for. So just really proud of the generosity of our community and our donors to be able to make this possible. And again, that dollar amount for 1 or 2 apartments is pretty substantial. So, hopefully we can figure out ways to keep costs down, figure out what we really need and what we don't need, and then, figure out how to do this at scale. But there's definitely, as we mentioned, the cost barrier to all of this.
Yeah, but we did really want to make sure that that wasn't a barrier to someone coming into the space. And so we've been able to keep rental rate at a pretty standard rate of what you would find in the community, which is amazing. That we've allowed it to be accessible for a lot of different individuals from that perspective.
Yeah, and Don, I know that there's been some questions on specific pricing. You've probably answered these offline, but if there's any questions on specific pricing, if you have someone in mind, we're happy to talk about that more individually, just because there's several different factors that we consider for that. And so it'll be just easier to do it that way. So please let us know, or we will reach out if you had some of those specific questions and close the loop. So
I may have missed this being answered earlier. What's the length of time someone can stay in the smart apartment, or average length?
It's so customizable to what that person needs. I would say on average, we're having people stay in there for about 2 to 4 months. We found that that's a good window of time to work on these skills, get them to a point where they feel really confident getting back out to the community and being independent, maybe with utilizing some of these pieces of technology, as well as Steve mentioned, participating in our really intensive motor learning program to build skill and to build strength and endurance to allow them to feel really confident going back. But it's customizable. We've had individuals that have stayed in here for 6 months if it really made sense. So it's always so dependent on the person.
all right, with that, just a quick reminder, if as you're signing off, you should get the pop-up to fill out the evaluation. Please fill that out. Your feedback is really important to us so that we can keep providing really great content. But number 2, that is how you get your CEUs. If you don't get that popping up, typically it's an issue with your pop-up browser. We're happy to help. Just text or email Don, Laura, or myself. We'll get that squared away. But if you continue to have that issue, that's usually an issue on your end. Please look at your IT configurations, your browser configurations, if it continues to be an ongoing issue. One other thing I will mention, those of you who have forwarded our invites, first of all, we really appreciate that. What we're noticing is the link is getting cut off for some reason as you forward it. We think it's just an issue on how it's getting processed through Outlook. We don't have a solution yet. We're working on it, but if you do forward it to someone and they don't have the link, just let one of us know. We apologize for the confusion, but we don't really have a solution. We're not quite sure why it's happening. And then with that, we'll wrap up. We'll be back next month on nutrition is the topic. We'll have Steph Rowe joining us in the studio. This will be a follow-up to her nutrition presentation. I believe it was either earlier this year or later last year. So we're excited to have her back. And thanks again for tuning in. We really appreciate it.